I came here to tell you my story because there are people who go through these types of relationships and might still be healing, but I also need some advice. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and when I was 14, I liked older guys. Not just guys who were 1 year older than me, but 3 to 4 years older. That's when I met my ex. He was 17 at the time, and he was a really sweet guy until he started opening up about his mental health and a drug addiction. Don't get me wrong, I don't judge him for being mentally unstable, but he never took his prescription, and he would just throw tantrums all day, verbally abuse me, and overall didn't care about me. I was with him for 2 years until one day he finally blocked me, effectively ending our relationship. I never heard from him again until 2 months ago. One day I came home from school and looked into the mailbox because I saw an envelope. It was unusual for us to receive envelopes unless it was a bill. But this wasn't an envelope for bills. It was one meant for letters. I put it in my purse and went inside the house. After saying hi to my mom, I went into my room and opened the envelope. There was no return address or anything like that, but my name on the letter caught my attention. I had never received letters from anyone, and I was worried when I saw a signature that I recognized. I started reading the letter, well, trying to because the writing was awful. The person who sent it was telling me how they regret letting me go and that they want me back. I thought one of my friends was playing a stupid prank on me, so I brushed it off and put the letter in my drawer, laughing about the situation. Later that night, I was about to go to sleep when an unknown number showed up on my screen. I looked at the screen, confused, because I rarely received such weird calls from unknown numbers. I didn't really want to pick up, but I thought maybe one of my friends was trying to pull one of their prank calls on me as usual. I picked up and heard breathing. "Hello," I said. No answer. "Beatrice, are you this bored that you want to pull pranks on me?" Still no answer, just heavy breathing from the other end. All of a sudden, I heard his voice. "Who's Beatrice?" My eyes widened and I hung up. I stared at the ceiling in disbelief, put my phone on silent mode, and just went to sleep. I didn't think for 1 second that this phone call was about to be the beginning of my biggest nightmare. I woke up the next morning with several missed calls from that unknown number, and I got a little scared. I opened my phone and saw messages from the same person, telling me to pick up and just talk to them. I tried to ignore it, but the calls and messages continued even after I got to school. When I was outside the school gates, smoking a cigarette with my friend, I got a call again. I answered and, upset, said, "Dude, who are you? Why are you calling me?" The person sat in silence for a few seconds, then said my friend's name. They heard their name and asked me who I was on the phone with. "You're with them, aren't you?" "Of course you are. I can see you." I looked around and didn't see anyone other than my other schoolmates. There were only 6 people around us, and nobody was on a call or anything. I got creeped out and hung up. I recognized the voice. It was my ex's. I told my friend that he had been calling and texting me from an unknown number since last night, and I didn't know what to do. She said there wasn't much I could do about it and that I should just ignore the calls. But as time went on, I started to get more letters, sometimes even flowers right next to the fence of my home. For context, my ex was from another city, and I never told him where I lived. He knew what school I went to, but never which class I was in. Then I started to get single roses once a week on my desk when I got to school. My classmates told me they never saw the person who brought the roses because they were already there by the time they got to class. I was super paranoid. I started to receive pictures of me and my friends outside the school gate, sometimes even when I was alone. I was terrified whenever I saw the unknown number pop up on the screen with a picture attached to the message. I finally had enough one day and called the number I had saved for him. I called him, but he never picked up. I started texting him on the apps I wasn't blocked on and told him to stop, or I would contact his boss and complain about his behavior, even making fake complaints about his service at work so that he would get fired. He really needed the job, so he left me alone for about a week. But then I started seeing him on the street, in public transport, and outside my school. Keep in mind, this guy lived in another country by the time we broke up and only came back when he started texting me again. I asked some of his friends when he came back, and they told me he returned to our home country the day I started getting the calls. I could barely leave the house after finding out that he knew my school schedule, and I always asked one of my classmates who lived nearby to pick me up with their car on the way to school. One day I wasn't so lucky, and my classmate who usually drove me to school was sick and couldn't show up, so I had to take the bus that day. When I got on the bus, I saw his blonde wavy hair, and I froze. I literally wanted to cry and didn't know how to get off the bus without him getting off at the same stop as me. In my country, we aren't supposed to talk to the driver while they're driving, but I had no other choice than to ask him not to let my ex off the bus. I explained the situation, and thankfully he was understanding and didn't let him off the bus. My ex was banging on the glass doors and screaming to be let off at the stop, but the driver just kept the doors shut and drove off. I sighed in relief and started crying while waiting for another bus to come. It's been a month since school ended and I haven't seen him since, but I'm scared that he might come back when school starts. The police won't do anything about it, and I even started getting threatening letters 2 weeks ago. I carry a pocket knife with me when I go out, and I even changed my phone number, but I don't know what else I can do. Edit. He has a twin brother. I knew this, but I never thought that maybe his brother is also involved in this. I'm starting to think they're in on this together, and that's why I see him so often. Edit 2. Hello guys. After I posted this, nothing really happened except for one thing. I was going to the airport in the capital and bumped into him on the bus on my way there. This really freaked me out because I don't live in the capital, and he doesn't either. I was really frightened, and out of fear or anger, I hit him in the face and just threw fists and yelled at him. I got off the bus as fast as I could and ran to the closest taxi station, and that's how I got to the airport. He started sending me pictures of myself again, and I had a total meltdown in the middle of the airport. I finally blocked his number after I got through security, because I just couldn't care less about evidence at this point. I'm in another country now, and he has left me alone, at least for now. I'm going back to school in 2 weeks, and I swear, if I get another message or letter from him, I'll be the one getting arrested. I'm really tired of this, and I can't help but think about the horrible things I would do to him. I hope I don't sound crazy, but seriously, I'm desperate to be left alone. I live and work in a very small and rural area that also happens to be a college town. It definitely has an everyone knows everyone kind of vibe, and I often run into the same people around campus or while running errands. The town is mostly made up of students, professors, university staff, and young families with children. I have always felt very safe here. We have a police force patrolling campus almost constantly. And as a student, I would often explore campus late at night without ever feeling unsafe. We have the occasional tourists coming in and out of town, or people from neighboring areas who we call townies. The 4th of July is celebrated heavily here with a parade, craft fair, dog show during the day, and a fireworks display at night. I have a boyfriend who lives about an hour and a half away. He usually visits whenever he is able to get off work. He wasn't off this past 4th, but he really wanted to see the fireworks with me that evening, so he decided to make the drive up from work and planned to leave super early the next morning to make it in time for his morning shift. I had gone to the earlier festivities that day with some friends. It was a beautiful but ridiculously hot day. Although I was dehydrated and sweaty, I was overall having a great time and was happy to see my boyfriend. The fireworks are held at a lake on campus, and community members often come with their families and bring picnic blankets to spread out on and watch the show. There are also food trucks everywhere. The fireworks start at dark, but my boyfriend and I wanted to get there early to get a good spot, so we started heading that way around 5:30 or 6. The lake is slightly removed from central campus. You have to turn off the main road, go a ways down another road, and then make a turn onto another smaller side road to find it. The campus is old and not many things are labeled, so it's tricky to find your way around unless you know exactly where you are going. The lake is near the university farm, which is where the food trucks are set up in a big open field. From there you can walk about a quarter of a mile down a road to reach the lake. Some people were setting up in the grassy field by the farm, while others were actually walking down to the lake. My boyfriend and I decided we should go down to the lake since there would likely be a better view there. But first we stopped and got ice cream from one of the food trucks. Across from the food trucks is the road to the lake. We were about to start walking towards the lake, but at the head of the road there is a small pasture with a few horses, and I told my boyfriend I wanted to look at them before we started our walk. As we were standing by the horses, we heard a man's voice yell out, "Hey, you in the white hat," several times. It took us a minute to realize what was happening, but my boyfriend and I soon noticed that a man nearby was gesturing for him to come over and talk. The man finally approached us and explained that he's not from the area, but that his friends just dropped him off for the fireworks. He was wondering where most people would be watching them. I tend to be creeped out by unfamiliar men due to several bad experiences, so I was very wary of the situation. I hung back, pretending to be very interested in the horses while watching this guy out of the corner of my eye. He was tall with deeply tanned skin and shorter hair. I don't know any better way of describing him other than to say he looked dirty. He was wearing an oversized t-shirt and sweatpants, which looked like he had been wearing them for several days. He also had a guitar slung over his shoulder. He had a creepy look in his eyes, one I instantly noticed. My boyfriend is very outgoing and friendly, almost too friendly to strangers, and he immediately started talking to the man, explaining the setup. I eventually walked over, hoping this would prompt the man to go on his way. I explained that most people would be watching from the lake, and that if he kept following the road we were on, he would reach it. I told him it's usually a great show and that I hoped he enjoyed his visit. I was trying to be nice, but also desperately wanted this man to leave us alone. The man did not take the hint. Instead, he continued to talk to my boyfriend, asking if we were students there. My boyfriend explained that I used to be, but that I now work at the university and he often visits me. The man explained that he was from a town about 30 minutes away, and my boyfriend began discussing how he also grew up in the surrounding area. Somehow my boyfriend mentioned his favorite football team in the conversation, and the man suddenly became animated, saying he had just coincidentally finished writing a song about that exact team. He began reaching for the guitar on his back, and in a panic, both my boyfriend and I were like, "Oh no, that's okay, you don't have to play it for us." The man kept insisting, so I told him we would catch up to him down at the lake, and he could play it for us there. I was hoping that would get the man away from us, but again he didn't take the hint. He told us that he considered himself a rapper and asked if we wanted to hear him freestyle. I think my boyfriend was honestly entertained by this guy at this point and was like, "Yeah, sure, let's hear it." The man then proceeded to rap at us for, I kid you not, 15 minutes straight. My boyfriend and I kept looking at each other, trying to hold back laughter. One highlight was when this guy tried to rhyme mad with bad and sad multiple times. I was amused, but getting slightly annoyed as it was beginning to get darker, and people were streaming towards the lake. I still wanted to get a good spot. When the guy finished, my boyfriend and I were like, "Wow, that was so good," and tried to start walking towards the lake, but this guy followed us and blocked our path. He kept trying to talk to my boyfriend, even asking if I was his sister. My boyfriend explained that we were dating, and the guy's eyes lit up again. He pulled my boyfriend close and began mumbling vague expressions about dating and finding the one. At this point, I noticed even my boyfriend was beginning to look uncomfortable. I saw his hand go into his right pocket where I know he keeps a pocket knife. The man kept mumbling, half talking and half rapping. It was the most bizarre thing I have ever seen. I honestly couldn't make out half of what this guy was saying as he kept getting quieter and slurring his words. I specifically remember him mentioning his plans to run for mayor of his town in 2028, how he believed himself to be Archangel Michael. His name was Michael, and how he had tried to give up weed and cigarettes but failed. The whole time he was stumbling around, inching closer and closer to my boyfriend, who kept moving away. My boyfriend positioned himself so that he was between me and this man. At one point, I remember the guy grabbing my boyfriend and saying, "Wow, man, your eyes are really blue." He then went on a whole rant about how blue-eyed people are closer to God. He looked at my eyes and deduced that they were hazel. My eyes are also very blue, so I'm not sure where he got that from. This whole interaction lasted maybe another 20 minutes. And I kept trying to be polite while simultaneously looking down the street, hoping another one of my friends would show up and save us. There were several times when a family would walk by with children, and I almost decided to pretend that I knew one of them to see if they would help us get away from this man. But I decided against it since I didn't want to do anything to make this man angry because he seemed a little unpredictable. At one point, I even pulled out my phone and secretly recorded part of this guy's mumble rapping. I don't remember how, but this man eventually decided he had had enough of us and finally went on his way, following the crowd towards the lake. My boyfriend and I just looked at each other like, what the heck did we just witness? And watched the man walk towards the lake. We wanted him to get a good head start since neither of us really wanted to sit anywhere near him and be forced to interact with him again. As we watched the guy, we saw him stop and approach another group. We couldn't hear what he was saying to them, but we could tell they all looked confused and annoyed. We were considering going to distract the guy and help them out, but again we didn't really want to interact with him again, and didn't want him following us around all night, acting like we were his friends. We also briefly considered going to get one of the police officers present at the event, but eventually decided against it since this man hadn't done anything outright dangerous yet. My boyfriend told me he knew the guy mentioned smoking weed, but he also suspected that he might be on something else. My boyfriend is from the area and is very familiar with the drug problems in the surrounding communities. I also wondered if mental illness could be at play since some of the statements the man was making seemed like things someone experiencing mania might say. My boyfriend and I went the rest of the night without running into this man again. He gave us his Facebook name, so I went down a whole rabbit hole afterward. A lot of his recent posts were making vaguely religious and rambly statements about religion. But scrolling further down, it looked like at one point he may have had a wife and kids. I could also see the transition from him being clean cut and shaven to him not taking as good care of himself. It was honestly pretty sad. I am not sure if this man's life was disrupted by drugs or by mental illness, but I hope he is able to receive the care he needs. My boyfriend and I had a long discussion about it, and he knows several people from his hometown who have unfortunately faced similar struggles.